those in Pacific time zones. We're delighted that you've chosen to share a little bit of your day with Brightspot. Today, we are going to cover the third in our popular webinar series called What to Expect After COVID-19. This one is on the next normal for roadshows. When we decided to do this a few weeks ago, we kind of looked at each other and said, you know, we've spent a whole lot of time as an industry and as a nation looking back or looking down at where we are today. But we thought it was time to start looking forward and trying to step out and make predictions on what we believe the next normal is going to look like around incentive travel, meetings, and roadshows. And so we're delighted that you joined that. Our goal today is that this takes about 30 minutes. And with that, let me introduce a very talented group of panel speakers that are with me here today. I am Mike May. I'm president of Brightspot. Also have with us on the line Kim Fox, who is our director of meetings and incentive travel, as well as Phoebe Wright, who is, her title is program manager, but I think somebody called her the roadshow queen within Brightspot. So her forte are these roadshow and local market events. So we're really delighted to have Phoebe's expertise today. And then also I have Michael Butler, who's one of our director of strategic accounts. Michael and Kim and I all have 10+ years experience in this industry. Phoebe's the youngster in the crowd. She's got 5 years. So Phoebe's got more depth of experience on today's topic than any of the rest of us. So I mentioned briefly a minute ago that we've done 2 past webinars, one on incentive travel and another one on meetings, that we're looking at those next normals. If you go to our Brightspot website and look at our blogs, we have transcripts of those 2 prior sessions. And if you go to our YouTube session, if you want to listen or watch, you can listen to the video or watch the video of those 2 prior webinars. So those have really great content. We really hit a nerve with these sessions. I found that we probably had 4x the traffic of anything we've ever done in the past. So we hope today will be as equally satisfying. Throughout the day, we will take questions. We'll probably address the questions at the end, but if you find that little chat cartoon circle, please enter a question. We'd love to address that at the end of the session. Today's topics are going to cover the premise. Whoa, there you go. Hang on. Challenge of using a mouse and a clicker. So the topics today are the premise behind the roadshows, the purposes, 3 different types. We're going to talk about virtual, small, and grand, as well as the way that you can mix in gifting experiences. So one of the things that started us down this journey was something that I read one day from McKinsey & Company on some briefing materials. Of course, McKinsey is a whole bunch of really smart people. I've heard others refer to these briefing papers that they put out, but one of the slides that really caught my attention is this one that's on the screen, particularly circle number 4, reimagination. And it struck me that as an events industry, we need to think about how to reimagine some of the things we are doing, whether that's digital marketing, virtual events, trade shows, trips, meetings, anything. What are the ways we may need to reimagine those as we start to return to what we're calling the next normal? So the premise that we're going to talk about today behind this push for roadshows is that with many trade shows quarantined and canceled, that we are at the very beginning stages of seeing local private events starting to rise. You know, I will say, we certainly believe that there's a place for trade show. We believe there will be a return to the trade show and exhibit area. I have a friend that's likely on this call that's been very helpful sharing advice about the exhibits industry, that even how it may affect the meetings, the business meetings that we do at Brightspot when there are demos and exhibit areas within those corporate meetings. But it's definitely going to bounce back. But what we've seen is even once they rebound, that I think there'll be 2 things. It could be a little bit of a headwind against the trade show industry in just the short term. One is that some companies this year are going to have travel restrictions. So even as shows open up, hopefully in Q3 or Q4, there may be some attendees who are unable to attend due to company travel restrictions on their end. The other thing is, even if they are able to attend, consumer psyche has been damaged by this. We talked a lot about that on our 2 prior webinars. And so even if they're allowed to attend, there may be a certain subset of people who are reluctant to get on an airplane and travel. So, if we think about trade shows, I used a big cluster of people in Las Vegas as an example of trying to get all the people to go to the show in a single location. Alternatively, when we speak about road shows, we think the model flips and the company goes to the people. And this is an example of a company that if they did a 10-city tour around the U.S. to touch major metropolitan markets, how that might look. So as we go through our session today, and as we've been talking about next normal, we think the next normal is split into 3 phases. The first one is abnormal. Everything we're dealing with today is very abnormal. None of us in our lifetime have seen this. Even when we saw SARS, that was fairly short-lived. 9/11 travel restrictions were short-lived. So this health pandemic, as well as what we've done to the economy, has been extremely abnormal. It's good to see businesses cautiously opening up around the U.S. Certainly, I pray for people's health and that this virus will be tamped down and disappear from our memory. But for now, we're in an abnormal. Next phase is temporary. Just my prediction, I feel like temporary is going to be Q3, Q4. But when we get to Q1 2021, this is just my May prediction, that we will return to what I'm calling the old normal with an asterisk. And that asterisk represents the fact that it'll be mostly what we saw in January of 2020, but there'll be a few changes. We probably will have a little more social distancing. There may be certain changes to the way food and beverage is served, but I believe by Q1 of 2021, we will at least be mostly out of this abnormal and temporary phase we're in. So with that introduction, now we're going to talk about the purpose of road shows. And we've done a lot of work at Brightspot to kind of map out purposes of where these fall. And Michael, I think you're going to take over here for us.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, and welcome everybody. So where to begin? We suggest quite simply here at the purpose. It's paramount to the success of any marketing program. I think we'd all agree with that. Clearly defined business objective or purpose. With that, you can gauge success at the end. So at Brightspot, we actually have a discovery process up front of any engagement that we've termed DDX. That first D stands for discovery. And the first question we ask is purpose. What is the business objective here? That helps us recommend the right tailored solution. So we've got several examples. This should look familiar to you from a pipeline image, starting with the tippy top, demand gen. When you're approaching a mass market, you're going to have a certain type of marketing program, and then down onto lead generation. As you get closer to the top of the funnel and even into the funnel, might be some training purpose behind the event, and obviously down towards the end of the funnel, your partner account-based marketing programs, or even those closers and what we'd call customer hospitality that are celebrating loyalty with your trusted clients. So this would frame the next, or the 3 types of programs that we're going to share some ideas. Be thinking about where they'd fit in this funnel in your organization.
Yeah, Michael, and not to steal the microphone from you, but we've talked that we think these purposes are important because it affects budget and venues. People often spend more on later stage events because there's a much higher likelihood of somebody being a customer. But if you're earlier in the cycle, the demand gen, lead gen, they may spend less on the event just because the cost per lead may be a little bit lower.
That's right, great point.
Okay, let's see. Michael, did I jump the slide for you, or is that? No, okay. So with that, we're going to go to virtual road shows. So the white dots indicate where we think virtual roadshows play the best. And, as we know, there's some things we can't do. So our reimagined task force put together some really great ideas for the way companies can do virtual at this time. So with that, how about Phoebe, our roadshow queen?
Yes, thank you. So we're going to start with concerts. While I'm sure we all miss the opportunity to see our favorite artists live, there's still a way to do that. These private virtual concerts with an artist are quickly gaining in popularity. These intimate yet interactive experiences with artists are unlike anything you could have really imagined. So during these private events or private concerts, you actually have the opportunity to ask questions directly to the artist, request songs, enjoy your own personal session with your favorite artist. I actually attended one of these recently, and it was great. The artist was very engaged with the attendees, answered questions as they were coming in live about how he got to where he was today, took live song requests, and just really connected with the audience. So for these events, we recommend probably group size as small as maybe 20 and as large as 300. And then kind of following the similar format in sports, sports will also look differently too. Here you could consider an intimate event with your favorite sports player, same thing, Q&A session, and just, really connecting with the audience and that favorite player of yours.
Yeah, maybe I know we talked a little bit. Yeah, I think an opportunity here is you could get an A-list player, a B-list player, or a C-list. And sometimes we've done some events in local markets where a retired ball player who has been out of the game for 5 or 10 years might be able to be retained at a very reasonable appearance fee, but yet they still have popularity in the local market that would mean something to local prospects, but may not mean something in another city. So these can certainly come at small, medium, and large costs.
Yep, definitely. Virtual cooking class with the chef. This one, I'm sure most of you have probably really seen blow up in the past few weeks. Here you would have the opportunity to cook alongside a chef, but just in the comfort of your own home. To further customize this event, attendees could be sent the recipe of the dish being created along with a prepaid Visa gift card to allow attendees the opportunity to pre-purchase the necessary ingredients prior to the class. These classes are also best when small to allow for more engaging conversations, but also to allow the group more comfortably follow along, ask questions throughout the course. So we'd recommend anywhere from probably 10 to 15 attendees for a cooking class with a chef event. And then the next slide. So wine tasting and mixology. So similar to the virtual class cooking classes, Mixology follows that same format. Here we're just replacing the dish with a fun drink. So to further customize this event, again, we could send the attendees a drink recipe along with the few ingredients needed prior to the class. And then for wine tasting events, this would include a session with a sommelier who would discuss different topics from wine appreciation to wine pairings and anything really in between. Each attendee could be sent a pre-selected wine package prior to the event. And for further customization, you can consider adding a branded bottle of wine, turning the bottle into a keepsake post-event. Again, these types of events, around 10 to 15 is best just to allow for that engagement with the attendees, also allowing good conversations and the ability for the attendees to feel a part or involved with the event.
Phoebe, what I think is nice about this one is it also has a gifting element that will stick around for a while after the event is over, so it has a halo effect within that home that would remind the attendee of the sponsoring company. So has some lasting residual benefits. Phoebe, something else we talked a little bit about internally is how you would weave the business content through. And I think you told me that we've done things from having the business presentation at the beginning, the end, the middle, or having it sliced up into segments that can fall in between each song, or in between that player interview. So certainly companies are going to want to get their marketing message out, and there's a lot of flexibility on how to weave that throughout the event.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's see. I like this next one. What is it, Phoebe?
So virtual paint night. Virtual paint night is actually a spin-off of Painting with a Twist, which I'm sure most of you have probably heard of or have done with your family and friends. The format is the same, just at home. So this family-friendly virtual event option offers your group the opportunity to follow alongside an artist to create a masterpiece of your own. Paint kits can be sent directly to your attendees prior to the event, which is really nice. For this group size, we'd recommend probably 20 to 25 to, again, allow for the engagement and questions and the appropriate time for attendees to follow along the artist. You're muted, Mike.
Hard to drive slides in and be a host. So yeah, thank you, Phoebe. The next phase we're going to go to is small events. So we do think small events are going to start rebounding in Q3 and Q4. We believe that will largely kind of follow what we're seeing in many states as restaurants and other types of venues open up. But yet we're still saying these are in the small category. So Phoebe, what do you have for us in this section?
Yes, so we'll start with lunch and learns. We all know what these are. So we feel like these will start to make their debut around Q3 because these events will give the companies the opportunity to reintroduce themselves and their products or new products to prospects and clients after we've been in complete isolation, while also taking a moment to enjoy a meal and just good business conversation.
Yeah. Phoebe, I'll be ready to have a lunch soon, and if somebody buys my lunch, I'll be even more ready.
So dinner events will most likely make a comeback starting in these quarters as more restaurants reopen their doors and restrictions on group sizes lighten. What's great about these dinner events is that there's flexibility for a relaxed agenda with little business talk, or you can sway the opposite direction and follow a more strict agenda with more business discussion. Because these dinner events are usually a little longer, we're able to be a little more creative with add-ons such as wine pairings, beer tastings, and speaking engagements.
Phoebe, what are some dinner venues that you think work well here?
So steakhouses are really great because they have the 4-star, 5-star. People maybe wouldn't likely attend them if someone was paying for them. They are really great atmosphere. They have the private space that allows for these creative add-ons like the wine pairings, which we've done in the past. We've done the beer tasting and speaking engagements. So definitely, steakhouses or 4 to 5-star restaurants are a great option for dinner events.
Yeah, good. Okay, so let's see. How about this one?
So cooking class with the chef, like the virtual cooking class event we touched on a few minutes ago, this event would just turn into an in-person event. So with a very similar structure, small groups would be hosted by a chef at a restaurant or a cooking studio. Attendees have the opportunity to create a dish alongside the chef for a more cooking class experience if that's what you're interested in, or the event could be a shed left demo followed by dinner. These events are very customizable and great interactive experiences for attendees.
Yeah, it seems like every local market has got half a dozen known chefs, and those chefs are always opening up a new concept. So I think those work well when somebody wants to go try out the new dining concept.
Yeah, definitely. So Topgolf has been a great venue in the past for our groups who are interested in holding a meeting, then following it up with an activity, or even just hosting a networking reception. The space limitations in the bays are naturally smaller, so it makes this a great option for those smaller group events. Most of the Top2Golf locations have private rooms available, which allow groups the option of starting the day off with a business meeting and then closing it with a few rounds of golf, food, and conversation.
Excellent.
And then we have private shopping experience. So as these retailers are reopening their storefronts, there's a really great opportunity here to host an in-store event. Invite your prospects to a popular brand store like Kendra Scott, Nike, Fossil in your local markets, and host an in-store event where your guests can choose from a selection of merchandise, enjoy a cocktail, and network with your team. These events can range anywhere from 20 to 40 in size.
Excellent. So then we transition to what we're calling grand events, that we think these will take maybe a quarter longer to start appearing, just because they will be dependent on the venues starting to open up. So Kim, I believe you were going to explain this one to us.
Yes, thanks, Mike. So as Mike sort of just mentioned, we do not see grand events really making a comeback likely until probably the last quarter of the year, and maybe even more realistically into Q1 or Q2 of next year. The main difference on this type of event is being the number of people that would be attending and the fact that they're held in venues that would be full of people like movie theaters, arenas, or stadiums. Our physical distancing protocols that we now have in place will have to be much more relaxed, and we do feel venues will be reducing their capacity to help with this. The first one we'll talk about is movie premieres. These are a great opportunity to open your invitation list to more of a manager level, someone who would use your product or service on a daily basis, but not necessarily be the decision maker. The idea being that you want their buy-in so that they will talk about it. This event works well with new releases, since families are encouraged to consider a family-friendly movie. What's great about these events is that as the host, you buy the entire auditorium, allowing you to control the environment. Most theaters seat 200 to 300 people, which gives you the opportunity to allow for some physical distancing with max attendance perhaps of 100 to 150 people. There's usually a short networking event prior to the movie where your guests can get popcorn and beverages and network with the host and other industry colleagues.
You know, Kim, we've done this a couple of times. One of the things I really like about this is when you may want to target earlier stage leads and maybe at a lower level, like a manager level. You know, many times those steakhouse dinners and things like that, or higher end events, are targeted at a director or a VP. But this one works really well at targeting a manager level, and when you're just trying to get a large number of leads for maybe an early stage type of marketing emphasis.
Yep, that's right. So moving on to concerts, everybody loves going to a bucket list concert, and they are certainly a great way to bring people together in a more casual setting. This type of event is better for your decision makers or influencers. From what I'm reading, it seems we will not see in-person live concerts likely until Q1 or Q2 of 2021. When we do eventually resume, they will look much different. Venues are definitely going to be restricting capacity. Seats and rows may be blocked off. Masks could even be required, hand sanitizing stations, and perhaps even temperature checks at the gate. We would recommend using a suite, so you have more control over your environment, as well as the food and beverage you're offering. And an added benefit to that is it also gives you a better opportunity for networking without having everyone spread out. Typically, suites can accommodate up to 25 or 30 people, and we expect that arenas will reduce the suite capacity as well. And then moving on to sporting events, there's a lot of discussion on when sporting events with fan attendance will start up again, and it seems to be changing daily depending on the sport and who is reporting it. Many of the points just made for concerts would apply to attending sporting events as well, such as football, basketball, baseball, or hockey. Stadiums, I'm sure, are going to be reducing their capacity, and safety and sanitation standards are going to be very strict. Again, we would recommend suites as the safest way to bring your clients together, as it gives you more control in a smaller space. And we expect that all these changes will come at a price. I think we'll definitely be seeing ticket prices increase for both concerts and sporting events for these venues to be able to cover the expense of reduced capacity and extra cleaning.
Yeah, good. Well, there'll definitely be a pent-up demand when these do come back, so marketers will have a real opportunity if they respond quickly. Okay, gifting.
Great. Yeah, so I'm back. We use gifting strategically in our space, events and incentives. And at Brightspot, it's always to either appreciate, celebrate, or motivate. For roadshows, it's often those first two, appreciating and celebrating. Those for coming, or your partners for, your great partners for attending. The thing that I think would be the great takeaway here would be the gift often becomes the draw. You know, these ideas could work with either type of event, in person to have one of these great brands and their products on display, but wait for the last 20 or 30 minutes at the end of the event and have each attendee pick their personal choice. Personalization is definitely trending in our space. People want to be able to pick from a different number of options, even if it is within the same brand. You know, one size does not fit all these days. Or for virtual events, stay on the line at the end of the event so they're not cutting off early. You have their full attention, and then at the end, instruct them to stay on. They could receive a code, or you could do a gifting exchange, and then voila, they make their selection through an online portal, and it ends up on their doorstep a few days later. Like Mike mentioned earlier, you know, that halo effect, again, really that gift becomes the draw, especially for attendees. But yeah, the residual effect Mike mentioned really goes a long way. You know, I think of that Maui Gym brand, and it's over in the incentive side that we do more of those, giving them to winners, top sales achievers, top partner achievers, etc. But something as simple as a branded couple dollar eye cleaning cloth that has the program or the product logo on it with your logo, that might be co-branded with Maui Gym, and every time they open that box in their car for their sunglasses, you know, you get in that halo effect Mike described. So gifting, following your meetings becomes a great way to get folks there, and butts in the seats, as I like to say.
Yeah. Well, so let's see. Let me summarize here a couple tips and takeaways. You know, so first, you know, think local. You know, one of the beauties of this is it's convenient for the attendee. They don't need to get on an airplane and fly, and the ask is not a couple of days, but it may just be a couple of hours. So think local. Invest in something new. You know, there's something to be said in marketing for trying something new. It changes up the rhythm of what you're talking to your people about. Phoebe mentioned that some of these events will include a +1 where they can bring a guest. We've seen with evening events that the ability to include a +1 increases both registration and the attendance rate. I think many road shows will suffer where you get good registration, but attendance might only be 50%. But when we've a +1 added, the attendance rate jumps up to about 90% of registration.
Yeah, a thought for me that we've used around the office, become a home hero, including that +1. You know, if it's something your significant other or child might be able to experience, and you're the conduit to allow that through your connection with the partner that's hosting, you really become that home hero.
Great, I love that. Yeah, love that term. Also, partner with local sales teams. You know, this has been one of the biggest success drivers with roadshows. Is, you know, when the national marketing team partners with local sales, because when you get local sales teams inviting people word of mouth and reinforcing what's showing up in their inboxes, that really drives, again, registration, attendance, and success. So partner with the local sales team, and then, of course, we put in a plug to say hire Brightspot. And on a serious note, we think our value proposition is we can be a one-stop shop to save you from dealing with 5 or 6 vendors, because we arrange the venue, the entertainment, the food and beverage, handle the registration, the graphic design, communications, and giveaways, which could be 5 to 7 phone calls if a marketing team is doing it themselves. So with that, we're going to now jump to our Q&A phase. I see we already have several questions that have come in, so you can send those in through the chat balloon. And with that, we will jump to Q&A. Let's see, Michael Pasturzi from our marketing team. Are you here, and are you able to tee up a question for us?
Yes, can you hear me all right?
We can.
All right, excellent. First question. Do you think companies will be traveling internationally for incentives and meetings anytime during 2021?
Let's
Yeah.
see.
I
Michael,
can
you can
take that. Yeah, with my ADHD, I already responded to that in chat, so I can lead off. Indeed, we have several clients that are pressing on. I think the key word here is responsibly. Still nothing in June, so things through June for us have been pushed, but we've got an incentive travel trip second week of July that is still pressing on, and several other events later this year. So, again, responsibly, I think is the approach, and then what does that mean for the type of event, the attendees, and at each touch point along the user experience throughout their departure return. And I think that's why these roadshows are really a great idea if you haven't been doing them, because it allows attendees to drive in locally from their comfort of their home where they've been for the last 3 months, short up, get off the sidelines into a meeting and event, keep their own social distance with all we've learned, and still, everything but that handshake we can accomplish here real soon.
All right, great. Next question up. For lunch and learn / dinner events, should we keep social distancing in mind with seating?
see. What do you say, Kim Fox?
I say yes. I think absolutely for a while we're going to have to, where you may put 16 people around a table, then you might only want to do 10 or even 8. I think finding your venue and knowing what the maximum seating is, and then maybe reducing it by at least a third would probably be a good ratio. Hopefully by next, my hope is certainly by next January, February, that it's not going to be as big a deal as it would be right now.
Kind of
my
a
hope is
follow-up.
we won't
I'm sorry.
be talking about this in January and February, and but I think we'll see what happens as restaurants open up, and what people's comfort levels are too. I've noticed, just as I've gotten out, I don't see a whole lot of masks, even though we're supposed to be wearing masks. So I don't know if that's mean we're getting more comfortable or if we're being reckless, but we're in the middle of a big experiment here for the next month.
All right, kind of a follow-up to that one. Do you see these mandated distance requirements for sanitation procedures as a major drawback for holding group dinners or lunches?
I'll just jump in. I think if we are in an era where we feel like we were 2 weeks ago and everybody needs to be sitting 6 feet away from each other at a dinner table, it will be a drawback. That's where it feels like we're in an abnormal phase. The riddle in this is, when are we going to move from abnormal to a temporary phase where, we need a little more distance. We're not going to have 10 people around a table, but can we do 4 or 6? What are our comfort points?
Right. We have another question coming in. Inquisitive minds are asking how NFL stadiums will determine which tickets get in and which ones don't as it relates to reduced attendance.
I'll actually step in here, although I bet Michael Butler, being the sports nut that he is, has an answer. But I was actually doing some reading on this yesterday, just of when stadiums and all will open up. And this is obviously a discussion that, all the NFL, et cetera, are discussing, because obviously season ticket holders are definitely going to have the priority over the public buying tickets. So I think that's yet to be seen of how they'll do that. But my guess is season ticket holders are probably going to get best preference before they're open to the public. Butler, do you agree with me?
Yeah, no, I do. My vision of this, I have a hard time thinking these NFL owners, even given the circumstances, would take seats out or block seats. So I envision more like I see walking into my Whole Foods down the corner where the checkout person is behind glass. Maybe there's some real thin plexiglass that you can see through in any direction, but it does keep you from the person next to you coughing or sneezing on you if they're not with you.
Mm-hmm. Good.
Another one. Let's see. We all know that events have different goals in terms of scope and size, but in general, how long would you recommend a virtual event be?
Phoebe, what would you say there?
Probably at most an hour. It's going to be difficult to keep the attention longer than that. 45 minutes to 60 minutes really seems like the sweet spot here.
Yeah. I think when we were going through our preparations, we thought that the painting may be the one that could go just a little bit longer because it's so interactive where people are doing things themselves. But yeah, I agree with you, Phoebe. 50 to 60 seems like
that in a cooking class, that might take a little bit longer than 45 minutes.
Good point.
All right, we have another one. Wondering if we will see Topgolf and other event-centric venues put a Plex partition in between golf bays or such things like that to help with the social distancing requirements.
Ah, there it is. Someone else thinking along my lines. Back to the, I think we'll see that sooner, right? At Topgolf, maybe as soon as they open. The NFL, I think one of the advantages they have is their season doesn't even start till after Labor Day. So we're still more than 3 months away. Mike mentioned we're kind of in the middle of an experiment here with Georgia opening first a couple weeks ago and not seeing a second spike in those 9 or 10 states that never did shut down at all. But now you've got another 20 or 30% that are opening, whether they're in that phase 1 or subsequent phases like Georgia, Texas, and others. And, there's some hot spots. I know California's slower to open and taking a different approach to it. New York and the Boston area as well. So, these regional events can play to the leverage there as well.
Great. And because we are suggesting a roadshow that moves virtually with a max of 1 hour, how would you suggest incorporating business presentations within that time frame?
Michael, I feel like the best is if a company can break it up into 5-minute segments. We've seen some of these done where, there's first the business, then there's the entertainment, or vice versa. But, and either of those work as well. But I think if you can intersperse it throughout, such as, if you're doing the cooking class, if you start part of the preparation and then if you can coordinate with the chef to say, hey, okay, while I'm getting this ready, I need to take 5 minutes, and the marketing person comes on and shares content. Or if it's a mixology class, that it's broken up and kind of weaved throughout what's occurring, or same thing with something like the painter. But it will require marketers to tighten up their message, which is probably a good thing as well. Everybody is craving brevity and focus, and really hitting the message points tightly and succinctly. So marketers will have to tighten up their message. You couldn't do a 45-minute PowerPoint. You're probably going to have to shrink your content down to 15 minutes, maybe 20 minutes. Let's see, Michael, if I'm watching this looks like that was our last question that's come in.
Yep, I believe so.
All right, let's see here. Looks like we had one more late question now. Let's see, that asks about all-day summits with multiple presenters and multiple avenues. When we do get to where we're back to face-to-face events, that could certainly work. We've done, while a lot of these roadshows focused on 1-hour events, we've definitely done some roadshow series where it was a 4-hour event with a general session, several breakouts, or even maybe a 6 to 7 hour day with general session, breakouts, a demo area, possibly a reception at the end of the day. But what'll really drive those all-day summits is the ability to meet in large gatherings again, and consumers being ready to do it. And now that I've rambled with that, I see the question, the chat came in about virtual. I'll go back to what Phoebe said. I think an all-day summit virtually is really hard. Even some industry groups that I'm involved with, we're looking at doing maybe a 3-hour board meeting that would occur over 2 days. Just trying to keep people in one place for more than 3 or 4 hours, even if you're breaking it up with speakers, is going to be tough. If you worked in breaks in a virtual setting where there was a 15-minute or a 30-minute break and a 45-minute lunch break, you could probably pull off the all-day summit. But you would definitely have to mix up presenters, mix up media where you're putting in video. You're probably doing some panel discussions like we're doing here. I think you'd have to have a lot of variety to keep people's attention. So with that, I think we've reached the end. I really appreciate everybody sharing your time with us today. I really appreciate the insights of the Brightspot Reimagined speakers here, Kim, Michael, and Phoebe. I know Kim and Phoebe would tell us behind those of us presenting were a group of about 10 to 15 people that huddled up on these reimagined task force to look at how to reimagine the next normal for incentive travel, meetings, as well as roadshow. So everybody in our events and incentive travel team participated. So we definitely appreciate their insights. Hopefully, for those of you on the call, you got something beneficial. Our marketing team will follow up within the next probably 24 hours with slides, and they'll probably also send a video link. We've recorded this, so we'll put that up on our YouTube channel in case you need to listen to it again later or you want to refer it to a contact within your company. So thank you for sharing your time today. I wish everybody a healthy Memorial Day weekend, and we look forward to meeting with you somewhere face-to-face very soon. Thank you.